Yeah, we're back. Unfortunately, this week we are unfortunately decided to do a hot topic.
Yeah.
I mentioned to you, y'all, both of y'all. We just had a month of comfort movies, right? Like
Yeah.
we just had tomato soup and grilled cheeses for a month, right?
Yeah.
Ramen for a month, spaghetti and meatballs for a month. Let's branch out and do chicken tikka masala or some kind of pita bread. Just branch out a little bit of our diet here. Just go out.
You hungry?
Say, didn't you just eat?
Yeah, just ate. So we decided, why not start with the second, tied with numerous other movies, talk about the second most nominations in Oscar history. The film that has the second most nominations in Oscar history.
Really?
Um,
Yikes.
yeah, there's a list of
Oh.
we could talk about. That is Emilia Perez, the divisive, to say it nicely,
That's a way to put it.
movie that just came out about a couple months ago, and is now starting to make the waves in the awards circuit. I think it won Best Musical over Wicked, which pissed a lot of theater kids off.
Excuse me?
There are thoughts there with that. But anyways, I recommended this movie to you, both of you.
Yes.
I said, watch this movie. We'll talk about it. By the way, we didn't watch it together.
We did not. Well, we did.
Yeah, y'all did. I was busy that day. I watched it. Anyways, did y'all have any preconceived idea or know about this movie prior to me saying, hey?
I learned about the premise like 2 seconds before our friend hit play.
You didn't even know it was a musical.
I did not even know it was a musical until the first musical number. I was like, why the are they singing? And everybody turned and was like, it's a musical. And I was like, what?
I knew
That,
nothing about this film.
Yeah.
I knew that after it won Best Musical and Comedy at the Golden Globes, I started seeing like articles, and YouTube was recommending me videos about it being a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really look into it outside of that. Once you said to watch it for this episode, I just skimmed the Wikipedia page and saw that there were like criticisms from the LGBT community and from Mexico. And I was like,
The two groups are trying to portray.
yeah, I was like,
that's never a
okay,
good sign.
I can extrapolate what the criticisms are probably going to be from there. But I knew nothing about this film prior to it winning the Golden Globes.
Didn't know about the director.
No. Well, okay. Obviously, I do know of the director because he has directed fairly popular films in the past. He's won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival as well, which is considered like the most premier award that a film can win.
Okay.
So he's not necessarily like considered a bad director.
He's not a no name.
Yeah. And the film that he won for was a movie about immigrants living in France. So he's used to touching on those kinds of, subject matters of, depicting other cultures in his films, you could say.
Really?
Yeah. But outside of that, I didn't even know that this film was like existed prior to it winning the Golden Globes. So,
What did it win at the Golden Globes again?
Best musical
musical.
comedy.
I think it also won
Comedy.
No, that's one category.
Best musical or comedy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They're together.
The Golden
Okay.
Globes are weird like that.
I was
They
gonna
do-
say, I'm like,
yeah.
I don't think this movie's would have even classified as a comedy, but all right.
Well, it's a comedy, but just not in the way you would think
True.
traditionally. And by the way, on IMDb, one of the categories is comedy.
Probably because it won the award.
Probably, yeah.
It's
Say,
got- it's got that going
I don't
for
even
it.
think there were jokes.
Yeah, she talks about her buttery butt in one of the songs.
Oh
And then there's the Selena Gomez line that we were talking about 5 minutes beforehand.
You're right.
that I don't think we
There
should
were a
repeat.
handful of jokes. Yeah, I wouldn't call them jokes.
They're a joke.
They're jokes in the same way that I make jokes. Where they're not really funny in any sense of the word. Anyway, I digress.
Who wants to start?
So, in every way that I thought that this movie could be bad, it was.
Mm-hmm.
and
that's-
somehow offended two of us.
I want
Which
to say
is
this.
saying a lot, considering the two it offended are not offended by a lot.
You could punch me in the mouth and I wouldn't be offended.
I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I probably deserve that.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be like, oh, I'm talking shit.
I don't want to say this movie failed though, because I think it actually achieved exactly what it set out to do.
Which was?
The kind of story that it tells has been done before. And there are other examples of it that I could point to. It reminded me most of the musical Rent, which another opera as well, which I think is a very important distinction, that this is an opera technically. It's not a normal musical like Wicked is.
Yeah.
So the convention of how the music is used throughout the story is different to what you would think, where it's like we talk and then we have a musical number.
Yeah.
Everything is a little more weaved into the story and the characterization. That being said, though, this specific kind of story, although it has been done before, is so out of date in this day and age that it boggles my mind that anybody
They would
thought
choose to do that.
that it could be done again.
Yeah.
Well, it's the director going, hey, you know what's in right now? Musicals. And then just not having people who understand just basic song composition.
Yeah.
Chorus, verse, bridge, verse. Or
Yeah.
maybe I think I messed that. I think I messed that up. Don't hire me for a musical. But
Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus.
thank you. I know I flipped the verses in the chorus.
You have a 2-5-1 chord progression, you're set. That's every pop song right there.
Literally. I mean, like, just basic. Just
Two chords and the truth.
Did you take an elementary school level music class?
Mm-hmm.
Seems like nobody on this project did, because the songs don't make any sense. We'll get to the actual movie. The music is what offends me, not the most, but like it's the one that jumps out.
It's to me, it was like, because like the first musical number, like I'm used to musicals, right? Musicals, music happens. People will just be talking and all of a sudden they're singing, right? That's normal.
Yeah.
This was the most jarring transition to where I was like, why are they singing? Where I like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It just becomes a song, and people are doing stuff in the background, and you're like, am I high right now? Like, am I having a fever dream?
Honestly, that's what it felt like.
And that happens for like every song, like like maybe there's
Hello,
like two.
very nice to meet you. I'd like to know about.
Yeah, like stuff just happens, and they're not singing; they're just talking. And I'm like, but this isn't musical. Like I'm singing and telling a story through song. This is just somebody who's like,
I see.
fresh out of theater kids classes and trying to be like, look at me, I'm so cool and hip. I'm gonna sing everything because I'm so amazing. I got the lead role. Like.
It's if you took Hamilton, put it in Spanish, and then just made it worse.
Yeah.
It's literally what it is. Because Hamilton, they talk in song, but they actually have like a rhythm and cadence to how they talk.
Yeah.
Or how they sing. So where it's like, oh, this is hip, I mean, and then it's also hip hop. So it's like, oh, this is snazzy. Like this is new age. This is cool. And then you actually listen to, and then it's like if I were to try to do that and be like, let me have my guys rap at each other. And it's just literally like, is this for you? For me? No. And then it just goes.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck are we doing?
This film feels like somebody picked a list off of Wikipedia of hot topics in current year.
Yes.
And then dartboarded at it.
Yes.
And they landed on musical
trans
people.
Trans Mexicans.
Mexico. And they were like, we gotta make it work.
They did what's the thing where you have to do like noun, adjective, verb,
ad-libs or whatever.
Ad-libs, yeah. They did an ad-lib and we're like, that's our next hit.
This is genius.
Yeah. It just off the top, the musical numbers.
Musical numbers exist.
Lady.
James, what are your thoughts on the musical numbers?
Like I
You
said,
checked out fast.
like I said, it's an opera. The musical convention works differently from a normal musical.
Still
Right.
bad.
And but knowing that going into it, I could stomach the way that the music is weaved into the dialogue. Obviously better than you guys did. That's just how operas work.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen Les Mis, you've seen Rent. They do that all the time, right? The actual story is conveyed through music. So when they get to important plot points, they start singing them, even if there's no music behind them. even if they're just talking. That's how they do it. You get used to it. It's an acquired taste.
It's still.
Choir taste.
I'm glad you said all that. It's still bad.
I'm not saying I liked the music. But I think most people's negative reaction could partially be explained by the fact that it's an entirely different genre
They
from
wouldn't
what
think
they're
it
used
was
to.
going to be like
Wicked.
Yeah.
Hercules.
Yeah.
Like Wicked,
Yeah.
yeah. Which, like, totally fair. And like you said at the beginning, where you're like, I don't think this movie failed in what it did. Rebecca and I talked, our friend Rebecca, and I talked about it a few days after we watched the movie, and we were talking. I'm like, on all ends of it, this movie isn't like it really does set out to do exactly what it does, and it tells the story it wants to tell. It's just like it's so tone deaf the entire time.
It feels like somebody said, "Hey, remember this film we made from 13 years ago?
Yeah.
Let's release it now."
Exactly. Yeah. It just like it feels like you're watching like an old film where the entire time you're like, ooh, that was. I mean, it
Rush
was a
Hour
different
3.
era. Like, you know, yeah, kind of. You're just like,
In terms of the music itself, wasn't good.
no.
The one song that stood out to me was the song during the banquet, but I think that was the song that had the most like rhythm to it.
Yes.
And the actual whisper singing worked because she was in a crowded room,
Yeah.
and so it makes sense that she was kind of, keeping quiet.
Whispering, yeah.
That's
Whispering in
an
the
actual
people's
like,
ears?
musical set piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Where
one
it's-
I
it's,
liked.
Things happen, and then like almost it's like an offshoot, and then we go back to the scene
Yeah.
after the musical number.
Also, one of the few times where the stuff happening on screen actually made sense with what the musical number was trying to get accomplished. That's a different point.
Continue on. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna ask, moving beyond the music, unless there's something else that we haven't touched on. It's bad.
Yeah,
it's weird.
just- it's annoying.
It's annoying.
gross and
Doesn't make
bad, and
sense.
The people can't sing and
People can't sing, which is probably. I mean, I'm just saying. Listen, I'm a guy talking into a microphone, not for a living, but for fun. Just saying. Bare minimum, just have people who can actually sing in Spanish. I don't know why that's like. I don't know. This is crazy talk, but like, just have that.
Another point I want to make too: the lyrics themselves, and I'm not even talking about like the meaning behind them or their whatever their translation was in Spanish. Very very simple.
Yeah.
Lyrically, they used like as basic words and phrases.
That's a whole.
There's
I want to do a whole nother thing on
You
that.
want to do another thing on that?
Yeah.
Ian?
It's
Okay.
like jumping the bit for that. Yeah.
All right,
We
I'll
have
let
our
you get to
pieces.
that.
We'll do that. We'll do that later. There's a whole thing on the translation
Yeah.
that pissed me off.
What's the script? We have the music covered. Then we're going to talk about the transport. Then we'll
Okay.
talk about the. Come
The
on, follow the script.
So the actual movie itself, beyond the musical numbers, we'll get to the Spanish. We'll get to how they portray Mexicans. Get to how they portray trans people. We'll get to all that.
Yeah.
The movie itself made no sense to me
Like the
at
plot.
all. Just characters not
Yeah.
making any sense other than the main lady. Kind of made sense
Which main
to a
lady?
degree.
Yeah, I would say which. one?
The
Zoe?
Emilia Perez.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Zoe Saldana had agency for like 5 seconds and then was just like, yeah, I'll do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Whatever. Yeah.
I'm going to cry about it in a musical number, but then I'm just not going to actually
Do anything. Yeah.
show any other kind of internal conflict for the rest of the movie. Oh, you guys are all bad people because you guys have bad money. Oh, wait. I just took $20 million to help this former drug cartel member
Yeah.
go into hiding. Like, there's a lot of that going on. I read the last act. Did not finish it. I'll say that right now. Did not finish it just because I was like, nope. Doesn't seem like any character has a redeeming ending whatsoever.
No, Rita. She gets redeemed. She gets the
Selena
family at the
Gomez?
end. No.
Rita Selena
Zoe.
Gomez. Oh,
Yeah.
Zoe.
I mean, fair. I don't know if that's redemption.
She starts the movie saying, "I want kids and a family," and she ends the movie with kids.
yeah. that's
She
true.
has a story arc. This is a movie about how a cis woman fulfills her life through the death of her trans friend. That's what I mean when I
Strike
say
that
that.
from
this-
the record.
I think he was in on that one for a while. That's a good one.
That's what I mean when I say that this kind of story just doesn't work any longer.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes.
Yeah, there's just a lot of points in this movie where you just have to sit there and go, how did this stay in the script? Was there nobody who reviewed it?
When you win the Palme d'Or, you can do whatever you want from there on out.
He really did get high on his own supply.
Compare Parasite to the trailer for Mickey 17 that we saw.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, Francis Ford Coppola made two of the greatest American movies of all time, and then proceeded to make Megalopolis. Like
Francis Ford Coppola has won it twice. He can do
years.
whatever he wants, doubled over.
Nobody's willing to tell people no when you have that much like clout.
Yeah.
Which is why it makes, like the big name directors that are still relevant 25 years later, like kind of impressive because at some point you're going to go off the deep end.
Yeah.
I mean, even think about like actors,
Yeah.
right? De Niro, Nicholson,
Excuse me.
like those guys just
Yeah, they just want paychecks.
And I mean, who doesn't? I would love a paycheck.
the acting.
The acting.
What acting?
I just got that. Yeah, there's not really acting in this movie.
Is this where you want to talk about the Spanish?
No.
Okay, because I don't think anybody in the cast knew how to speak Spanish.
I don't think a single one of them was a native speaker.
Okay, we'll go to this. We'll talk about the Spanish now.
I think we should talk about it. I think that's
It's bad.
Those are not how Mexicans talk. Like
Yeah.
Mexican people do not talk like that.
It's not even that that's how Mexicans talk. That's how Spanish, it's not spoken that way.
It's literally like I wrote the script in French, put it into English, put
Yeah.
it into Spanish,
Yeah.
and then force fed the lines in an earpiece to the actors. It is so devoid of any cadence, any rhythm. Like I don't speak. I'm not fluent at all, but I've been around Spanish
Yeah.
speakers my whole life. I know how, especially Mexicans. I know how they talk. I know their flow. I know the word choices that they use.
Yeah.
Like dialogue. It's literally it's like listening to a 5th grade Spanish class
gonna
full
say,
of white
It has
people.
a weird
offense.
double problem where the first issue is that the actual like vocabulary and grammar used is like you would expect from a
Yes.
5th grader. And on top of that, the people speaking it have the enunciation of a 5th grader whose first language is English.
Like the Selena Gomez song where she's in her room.
Yeah.
Nah. You're like, are you having a stroke? What are you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know Spanish that well. I don't know what the fuck you're saying.
Yeah.
I know Spanish, okay, but like you're
Yeah.
just. I don't even know what you're saying. Like I've never even heard of these words.
It had big like your high school Spanish class final exam where you had to speak only in Spanish, and you're just like, yo hablo español, and just like you're so focused on the words that you're not actually thinking about how to speak. That's exactly what it felt like.
Somebody on I forgot what subreddit it was, but somebody made a comment about how it sounded like the actors were speaking through memory. Like they memorized the lines and how to pronounce them.
Yeah,
As opposed to like
actually being able to say
being able to
words,
understand
or
like
say lines.
yeah, because obviously when you're fluent enough in the language, you understand like little nuanced things like emphasis, for example, that can really get lost, as opposed to just like, when there's an accent above the letter, you have to, stress that or something like that,
Yeah.
There was just none of that. Zoe Saldana had a little bit of it, and I think she's Dominican.
Yes.
And so her accent to me slipped in and out for the most part.
Emilia is from Spain. She's Spanish.
Really?
She had a bit of a.
But even then, Spanish
it's
like,
very
yeah, I mean,
different
it's
from
like
Mexican
taking
Spanish.
I mean, in a way, it's taking like someone from Australia and being like, all right, speak with an American accent from Kentucky.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's why
completely
you
different,
read
yeah.
like a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, I have to actually go to Kentucky to learn the language and the dialect. And with this, they filmed it in France, so it's like the actors couldn't even go offset for 10 minutes and be like how many movies have you heard of where people like the one I think of is I just had it on the tip of my tongue, Bank Robbers in Boston.
The Town?
The Town. Thank you. Jeremy Renner is not from Boston, but he went to Boston, and so is Blake Lively. She's not from Boston, but they went to Boston for weeks.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, I'm just gonna hang out at the bar and just listen. Like,
Yeah.
let me just get
Take
in the environment
sound, yeah.
and like just how these people talk. and there is none of that. And it's like, as an actor or as a director, you should have basic respect for
Yeah.
that language. It's like, or at least that region of like,
Yeah.
yes, okay, should she he have hired Mexicans? Sure, whatever. But at least have people who understand Spanish or are willing to learn it over months.
Or a dialect coach.
Or a
So-
dialect.
anything.
Yeah.
Which,
Like-
the sad part is there probably was a dialect coach.
Which, yeah, it just makes it worse.
Like, I get mad when a British person will play an American, but I'll be like, all right, I'll read about it and I'll be like, all right, they came over here, like
Yeah,
they've
you know,
lived in
they-
Los
they did their
Angeles,
best,
they
yeah.
lived in New York, like they're around everything, like it's fine, whatever. The fact that there was no like preparation on that, I think, is what pisses me off the most, because it just feels like you're just like spitting in the face
Yeah.
of the Mexican people. 'Cause it's like, this is how I look at you in a way.
I feel like there's a degree. So it's, from my perspective at least, there's some leniency if Spanish is already your first language to an extent, because dialects vary like
Yeah.
miles from each
Yeah,
other
yeah,
in Latin America, right?
yeah, it's a whole thing.
And like you can even tell that. I remember I was watching Motorcycle Diaries, which is about Che Guevara, who is from Argentina, but he was played by Gabriel Garcia Ball, I believe, who I think is from Mexico, and he did not have an Argentine accent throughout that entire film. But you're like, yeah, he still like is a good actor. He can still get across the character itself. The fact that in this film you were struggling to understand the emotions of the characters because there was no emotion behind what they were saying
Yeah.
is unforgivable. And the only actors who were actually good, in my opinion, were the lesbian chick who she meets very briefly, and to an extent Emilia Perez herself. And like that was it. And I don't doubt that those are the only two people who actually spoke Spanish on set.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's. I don't have a stake in the Spanish speaking part of it, but it's just, every part about it that was involving the like Mexican culture and people felt like it was a American show that threw a yellow filter over the top to make sure that you
Yes.
knew you were in Mexico.
You knew you were in Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of just had
Breaking
that vibe
Bad.
where I was like,
Which is weird because this isn't even an American production.
exactly. That's what I'm getting. I'm like, this feels like a really bad American-made film with how out of touch it was, but it was made in France.
It's a foreign film.
It's a foreign film. Which, I mean, admittedly, the French are, the French. We've talked about that here.
This
We
is
know how
probably
we feel about
the
French.
most offensive thing the French have ever done.
Yeah.
To America.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like,
To America,
next
yeah.
to taking our fries and calling them French fries, but whatever.
Listen, you French people can't be coasting on saving us during the American Revolution for this long, all right? It's going to be 200 something years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, until our next American revolution.
General
like 5
Lafayette.
years.
Lafayette is rolling in his grave
Yeah.
right now.
What's going on? Where do we go wrong?
You can take the Statue of Liberty back.
Yeah, is there a gift receipt on that? What's the statute of limitations on
Yeah.
that?
Gift receipt. Somebody just like plumbs the depths and finds it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's still good for returns.
Yeah, right.
It's like National Treasure where it's like written on the crown.
We only get store credit though. We don't
Yeah.
get.
We only get store
yeah, we don't get a full reimbursement.
we can buy a different statue.
We'll take the Eiffel Tower. You guys keep the Statue of Liberty.
We'll take the Palace of Versailles.
Yeah.
You guys can have the White House back.
Same location. We just put it right in the water.
Yeah.
All right. You want to talk about the trans elements in this now?
Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
Boy, do I. Okay, so I mean, I could rant about this part for like the next
Do what you
hour,
gotta do.
but I'm just gonna try
We
to.
are
Like,
not bound by sponsors
well, I recognize that. I'm just gonna try to summarize to be
or
concise.
broadcasting schedules. We're like PBR.
in terms of good representation, right? In terms of what the LGBT community deserves at this point in time, given our current cultural situation across the globe in general, really. This movie has set us back like 4 or 5 years. And I don't think a lot of people are going to watch it, and I still stand by that. How many times did I say I was offended during the watching of this?
You were pretty offended.
I was pissed.
What parts offended you the most?
Okay.
And I say this is just like genuine
Yeah, so,
curiosity.
like there are parts that I kind of like in hindsight I understand. Like during the entire sequence, I was like, the whole like I have to hide it from my family. I was like, that's freaking stupid. But like in hindsight, after the rage seeped out of my body, I was like, okay, I get it. That is kind of the plot, you know, like in drug lord. I understand
You're
it.
protecting the family. Yeah,
I understand it. It's a different culture down there. I get it. That being said,
It's like Breaking Bad when Walter goes to Montana.
yeah,
Or is it Montana?
I think it is. Yeah.
One of the
Wyoming?
states up there, Wyoming. Yeah.
there are so many things that happen in regards to the surgery, in regards to how transition is handled, in regards to existence of being trans and what that does to your brain, that are so it you can tell it was written by a cis guy. Is all I'm gonna say. A cis man who had no desire to read up
To actually learn.
on anything about it. Yeah. And the fact that they got a trans actress and that actress read this script and went, I want to be a part of this, hurts even more.
You
Up
put in-
until you read her tweets and you realize how she is. But
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end.
we'll come back to that.
Well, I mean, you put enough zeros on anything, I'm sure.
I guess, I mean, all dignity has a selling point, but like,
Not that that excuses her of
no.
not
It-
being like, you know.
Yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
there's it's hard to enunciate it all of just how much it upset me because I'm trying to black this movie out from my memory like actively.
So I can at least say this, and this is kind of one perspective that I saw the movie from here. Obviously, this film got a lot of awards and has been nominated for a lot at the Oscars.
Won 5 Golden Globes, has 13 Oscar nominations.
So there's not an insubstantial amount of people who understand that this film is portraying these communities
Mhm.
in a way that is aligned with the way people see these communities.
Yeah.
To that extent, I do think that the reason why this film risks setting back the LGBT community is because it reinforces ideas about trans psychology
Mhm.
that is not true.
Yeah.
Or is true, but is only true in like those cases.
Specific cases.
Yeah. It's not
Generalizing.
generalizing in a way you
Which
could
is very
say.
dangerous.
It's like it is not possible for trans people to exist without people writing stories with characters like this. That's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Mhm.
But for this to then receive 13 nominations
Exactly, yeah.
and win 5 Golden Globes is like, you know, when you're looking around the room and you're just like, you guys actually like think this way?
Yeah, you think
agree
this is how we are? Like, no wonder we
Like-
don't get any respect.
By the way,
for
she is the first trans actress to be nominated at the Oscars.
not even
Which
Ellie
should be a
Page?
thing to celebrate, but if anything, it makes me want to take a pitchfork to the Oscar building.
Well, it's you know, it just feels like it's like
It feels performative, is what it feels like.
Yeah.
It feels like I said.
I didn't want to say it, but yeah.
The way that I see it, because like allyship, for
Mm-hmm.
example, for some reason people have this idea that it's about like being able to personally empathize with like
Yeah.
a minority's struggles.
Mhm.
And that's just a liberal myth. That's not what allyship is.
No.
Real
It's
allyship
propaganda.
is about creating like spaces and giving the time for minorities to tell their stories in their own way
Mhm.
because that's what builds empathy
Yeah.
with as wide an audience as you can possibly
Mhm.
reach, right? But a film like this is a perfect example of somebody being like, hey, don't worry, guys. I understand how you feel.
Yeah.
And since I have the platform, I'll do all the talking for you.
Mhm.
That's exactly what this is. After the film, you were asking, like, how did this get nominated? And you were like, name another trans movie.
Mhm.
And I was like,
Danish
well,
girl.
I said, I saw the TV Glow.
That one, yeah.
Mhm.
And you were like, but that's made by trans people for trans people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because that's what we're supposed to be
But-
doing?
but yeah.
Question mark?
Like, because like to me, I'm like, it's one of those things where you have to like internally rationalize like how something like this gets made when it's you're the one being insulted by it.
Yeah.
And like how it's receiving awards. And it's like yeah, if something's made for your community and you can tell it's made for your community by people who care about your community, who understand your community, then you're like, I know it's not going to do good globally
Yeah.
because it's
It's niche.
designed for me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's not designed for the market. It's designed for me.
You
so
would
then you
like-
get something that's designed for the market, and
Yeah.
you know it's designed for the market because the market hates you, and you're just like, I want to be mad, but I mean it's technically representation. Like,
And at the you're like, look, this thing, it's niche, but like because this is representative of what we feel and experience, this is what should be getting recognition from awards.
Yeah, exactly.
And not the thing that like at some point people have to be like, does this cater to what I already thought?
Yeah.
You know, and there's this movie questioning like my it's so funny to read online like people who are trans or at least, you know, gender nonconforming watching a film like I Saw the TV Glow, and then cis people watching it, where the trans people are like, this is like the best movie. It
is
makes
me.
perfect sense.
This is
Yeah.
the experience distilled, right?
And then
Like,
all the cis people are like, what the hell is going on here? This makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at least now you understand what
Yeah.
it's like.
yeah,
You
like,
know?
you know.
This is from the ground level.
Yeah. You know?
Um,
And maybe an egg gets cracked or two.
It's
You
just
never know.
the fact that like there's so much good representation elsewhere that doesn't get commented on, right? And it's like people know how to do it without even like it being like, oh, this is designed for your community.
Yeah.
The example that comes to my mind that I wanted to talk about was it is also foreign. It is a Japanese Netflix show based on a manga. It is called Alice in Borderland.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
One of the characters, a predominant character, very, very important, is trans. And it is one of those things where she just is. It's not like, you know, it's brought up, you get her backstory, it explains it and stuff, you see it, but it is never like, I am trans and so I must do this and my brain must work this way, and oh, now that I have beautiful breasts, I must change who I am as a person because that's how surgery works. And it's like, no. She went through her process. She is the same person. You can see it here and
Yeah.
there because that's how you are the same person. Like you're just you on the inside presenting outside. Anyway.
Yeah. No, that's fair though because it portrays.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, it's like men are evil, like the
Ex-
root of all the world's
exactly.
problems, and then she becomes a woman, and all of a sudden she's philanthropist, and it's like, I'm not saying you didn't have to transition,
Yeah.
but also you could have just done that anyways. Like,
Yeah.
why?
It's
It almost feels like the trans element is just shoehorned in for the sake of like we want to. This is a hot topic, and we want to make a movie
yeah.
about this.
And we want to tell a story of
Yeah.
somebody turning into a philanthropist.
yes,
I want to know which one came first. Like, did they have a story about a drug lord?
Mhm.
And they were like, how do we make them even more like, you know,
Yeah.
like how do
Right.
we make their life worse?
Yeah.
Make them trans? Or was it, we have a trans person here. How do we make their life more oppressed? Make them Mexican.
And boy howdy does that work.
Yeah.
Because like that was there's an entire song about it where it's like, well, I can't change the mind. Once a man, always a man. And I'm like, I know that you put this in here to sing about how that's incorrect, but also your rebuttal is wrong. Your rebuttal sucks.
changes the mind, changes the soul, changes
Yeah.
the soul, changes society, changes
Yeah.
society, changes it all.
because there isn't a change. The only change is
Literally
physical.
Nothing in the world changes.
That too. The story doesn't change anything. And it's just like, ironically, the only times where I've been like, oh, this is actually really good representation is the few times when, before transition, before the surgery, the cartel leader is just talking about how she's felt and stuff. It's just like, you know, like when she's talking to the surgeon, it's like, has this always been how you are? And she's like, always. And there's just like, it had so much emotion behind it. And I was like, shit, somebody at least gets it. You know, and like when she
one
goes to the
genius in that
surgery,
room.
she kind of like cries, and you're just she's because that's who she is, and she's like, after all the, you know, the fast forwarding months of recovery, because good lord, those surgeries are invasive. And she's like getting dressed for the first time, and she's just saying her name over and over and over again.
That should
That's
be-
it. Like that's it. Like
End the movie there, right?
like yeah, right. I'm like that's you get it, and then they just don't anymore.
No, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's just it the fact that it has so much people or not it has nominations and has all these eyes on it, and it's bad representation just to me means people are going to watch it and they're not going to go, wow, this movie is bad, so clearly they have no idea what they're talking about. I'm gonna go, this movie is bad, but also this is how trans people are, and it's just gonna become a whole thing.
It's
You know what I mean?
performative. It's Hollywood elite feeling good about them. It's the whole Imagine thing during COVID where people
Yeah.
are like, imagine there's no heaven as
Yeah.
5 million people are dying every
Yeah.
day. It's like, dude, read the fucking room for once. Like,
Yeah, it's
sorry for the dropping the F bombs, but like stuff like that pisses me off. I'm like, you literally live in $1 million homes. You cannot
Imagine.
at all relate to the common person.
You
Yeah.
want to be like common people. Sorry, that's a good song.
And that's what it is. It's literally just the Academy and all these like I was watching like clips of interviews with the director, all the actresses, and they're all literally patting themselves on the back like, "Oh my god, like you're such a champion for this. You do such a good job of this." And I'm like, "This movie's for y'all. This shit's not for us. Like this is the worst thing that you could have possibly ever done." Again, sorry for cursing. I'm going to cut that out. But it's like it's just what are we doing here, guys? Like, this is not movies. This is not movie making.
yeah, it's just.
It's so terrible. This
But
is just
thankfully-
for them.
At least we know that all the actors are bad people, so I don't feel as bad.
I'm feeling the backlash is going to cause this movie to not be
Quick question for you
registered
guys.
as much.
Yes.
And I saw this argument made online too.
Mm-hmm.
This movie premiered in France. No backlash.
Should have stayed there.
Do you feel like this is mostly just America, like our reaction, our like whatever cancel culture has done to our brains?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just we immediately are just
We
like
call it cancel culture, but it's progressive liberalism, right?
Yeah,
like
it-
we're I don't want to say we're not woke, but like we think we're breaking preconceived notions of, marginalized groups.
Yeah.
And like whatever side of the aisle you live on, that's just the facts of America. Is like you say something about someone. I'm sorry. You say
go,
something
yeah.
about someone, and you're like, oh, did I offend them? And it's like that's not. There are extremes both sides of the aisle. Of like
Yeah.
this is woke, and it's like actually, it's like there's a middle ground that we can come to.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, like our thought process of how we analyze works is just so much different than every other. I mean, like I love my family. Sometimes I'll sit there. I'll be like, "You guys say."
I mean,
Like,
I was-
This is so off base of what,
Yeah.
speaking with people in America,
yeah.
and it's like, it's just different countries are unfortunately not as
Yeah.
forward thinking as we are. Granted, we've got a long way to go. Obviously,
Yeah.
Everybody
will we
does,
ever get there?
I
Who
mean,
knows?
most of the criticism
But-
we're seeing from Latin America is about the representation of Mexico.
Yeah.
Nothing about the trans
Yeah,
character
exactly.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which is what I was gonna get at. Is it's like you say like, oh, it had no problems in France. For starters, if the French don't like something, I feel like they don't say anything. They just kind of burn it to the ground.
Yeah.
They don't
They
just
boo.
like make
Chop
uproar
people's
for
heads
fun.
off.
They just start.
Yeah.
They just start doing.
That's one of those things where I'm always like, I find the movie I'm really like, and I'm like, oh, I'll read like its reviews, and it's like it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. It was booed for 10 minutes afterwards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, The Godfather?
yeah.
like the French
This must be
react in
art.
very different ways. But also like it's a story that maybe a lot of people in France have no idea about those cultures.
Yeah.
I mean, like, have you been to France?
Have you?
No, exactly. Like, how many French people do you think have been to Latin America?
I mean, because we have movies like that, right? Where it's
Yeah.
of foreign lands by directors who aren't, from the region or
Yeah.
at least like have knowledge of the region, and it's like that's in our way of our American
just- we
brains.
just
Is
have to
like that
accept that, yeah.
is Poland.
Well, first off, this is an opera, and France, at least, is one of the countries where you would expect that kind of musical form
Also
to
true,
become
yeah.
This is why I don't like
popular.
Yeah, which
I
is why we
do
don't.
think, however, there's an extent to which the globalization of cinema, because this kind of story, I have no idea if, there's a certain word for this kind of theater, and I forgot what it was called. But
Bad?
No. There's like an actual like, Marxist theatrical analysis, like film term for it. Theater of the oppressed, I think. Like that kind of storyline. Like we know tons of examples of America, right? You could think of Rent. Hamilton technically is also one of them. You could say, Crash, which you had mentioned as well, right? The premier Oscar bait film, right?
Yeah.
The example.
By the way, Crash at the end of the month is happening.
But yeah,
I
when
don't
I
know.
crashed my car after having to watch it again.
I'm gonna crash out if I can.
Like but those are the idea of Oscar bait is like a singularly American idea.
Yeah.
And the fact that now French people are like, we can make Oscar bait.
Yeah.
It's
Oui,
like,
oui.
this is not just the fact that people are like, this movie's bad because it's French. And I'm like, well, we're partially the blame too, I think.
Which like totally fair. It's just one of those things where it's like, you saying like, oh, it did well in France. The French don't give a shit about how it's portraying.
They don't like Americans.
Yeah, they don't care.
I can't imagine how they feel about other,
And I feel
Central
like
and
if
Southern
you-
American countries.
If you take away the fact that, like if you take away caring about the marginalized sides of this and how it's affecting those people, you probably are just like, yeah, it's just an all right movie. Because like, I'm going to use the freshest example that we have. When we finished this movie, our friend Rebecca looked me dead in the eyes and went, I think it wasn't half bad. And I was like,
okay.
the entire time I'm
Pause.
sitting here going,
Rebecca thinks Lando Norris is a championship-winning driver. She has absolutely zero opinion to like. If
And-
she says something is good, immediately think it's the worst thing
But-
ever made.
in this analogy, Rebecca is the French.
I think in this analogy, Rebecca is honestly most people who just don't really care
yeah,
about films.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Just people who just
Yeah.
exist, yeah.
If they just want to watch something entertaining, this film at least gives them something entertaining to watch.
It was a very good movie to get drunk off your ass and laugh about with. Like,
I don't even think it's that. I think it's
no, it was pretty good for because like you start noticing stuff and you're just like, this is stupid, but you're just like taking shots. Who cares? Like, it's kind of like the Borderlands when we did that. It's the same concept.
the
It's like-
Borderlands. At least I don't know. I enjoyed.
Borderlands was better than this. I will say that.
I'm offended by this movie. This is the first time I've ever been offended by a piece of work ever in my life. Unironically.
So shall we get into the fact that the
Oh yeah, so 13
The
Oscar
controversies and stuff
13 Oscar
regarding this movie?
nominations, I think. Let me double check that while I'm double checking. It is tied with a lot of movies.
Mhm.
I think most notably the Lord of the Rings movies. I think there are
No shot.
I think it's Crash is another one that it's nominated
That's
for.
painful to think about.
Let me look.
I don't even like Lord of the Rings.
How many
I'm
do we think
offended.
it's gonna win?
Hopefully 0.
10.
But I'm thinking maybe like 8.
I think it's going to win 10, but it's not going to win Best Picture.
If it wins Best Picture, I'm going to lose it.
It will sweep every other category except Best Picture and Best Original Song.
Okay, that would be pretty funny. I won't lie. That would be a good bit. But like,
Best song. Are they gonna do a performance at
Yeah.
during the Oscars? I guess they got rid of that. Huh?
They better. Oh, yeah. Doing. Like, what do you mean by Best Performance, though? I want to see Zoe Saldana do the banquet song, but with all the other actors in the audience.
I want to
Call them out.
I want to see them try to hide the fact that they are actively using AI to better the lead actress's
That's true, too,
voice during a live performance.
That would be pretty funny.
Sorry, I'm trying to look up the nominations.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot.
It has a lot. More than it deserves, and
Yeah.
not enough to be funny in
All right,
an
here we go.
ironic sense.
Best international feature film.
Probably
Best
going to win.
achievement in makeup and hairstyling.
No,
Best achievement in music
makeup?
written for motion pictures.
shouldn't.
Best achievement in music written for motion pictures original song. So
Shouldn't.
the last
definitely
one was
not.
for score.
Yeah.
Best achieve. Why are these? Oh, it has another song nominated.
It has 2 songs
It
nominated
has
for the
2
same
songs
category.
nominated. It has best sound,
No,
best picture,
no,
best achievement in directing, best
No.
performance by an actress.
no.
Wait,
Which is-
which actress?
The main one, Carla Gascon. I'm not gonna pronounce that last name right, just because you guys pissed me off. Best performance by an actress in a supporting role by Zoe Saldana.
No,
Best adapted screenplay, best cinematography,
No,
best
no.
film editing.
no.
Editing?
I can see
I got something to
because
say about these Oscars. in like 10
Zoe
minutes.
Saldana won at the Golden Globe, so I can see her winning again.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean,
honestly,
she's-
that's it.
She did I mean, for what she had, I feel like she didn't do a terrible job.
She just played a terrible
She
character.
just played a terrible character. Exactly, yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like she tried her best. Well, she probably didn't, but,
Yeah, I mean,
compared to everything else,
God.
if you're looking at a landfill versus, like, your trash can, you're like, well, my trash can's not as bad.
The
Like,
most Academy Award nominations for a non-English language film, surpassing Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Roma, who all had 10 apiece.
Yikes.
wow.
This one has 13.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's the Oscars. for
You
the
guys
summer
remember
music.
that really cool year where it was like 3 Mexican directors, one back to back to back to back for like
Yeah,
a
it was
period of time. Alfonso
Cuarón
Cuarón and then Del Toro.
Yeah.
And
We
Emmanuel.
were like, Mexico is so back.
And then
we haven't
Emmanuel-
been this back since like the 1700s.
And then Emmanuel Lubezki won Best Cinematography 3 years in a row too.
And now we have shit like this
Yeah.
to represent Mexico. By fucking French guy. Sorry, again.
This movie has us heated.
I'm trying to look at movies.
Us.
Yeah. I'm like, it's terrible, but you know, it's like
James, I don't think you've ever been heated in your life.
Most nominations received by a single film was 14, which 3 movies?
Titanic,
Is 1.
Lord of the Rings.
No.
Godfather?
Nope.
Oh, there was one. Dune.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't know the other one.
La La Land and All About Eve are the only other 2. To have been
Damn,
nominated
All About
14
Eve.
times.
Pulling out your film history right there.
Wow.
La
Whatever
La
happened to
Land
Adam?
won 6 out of possible 17 awards.
Wait, what?
La La Land.
Oh, it
won
only won
6.
6. It didn't win Best Picture.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It won 6 out of 14.
Moonlight won that year.
Wow.
It deserved it.
What is the movie with the largest sweep? This
Is
one
it?
you should know.
Is it not Revenge or Return of the
It
King?
is 11 out of 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The largest sweep. Just say it won everything.
That's what it says on here. Do you want to talk about the Oscars real quick? Because I don't really want to do a pod on the Oscars.
I have no
Why the
interest whatsoever.
Isn't Dune 2 there?
I think Isaac wants to do
Have at it. The floor is yours.
Shit. He was more upset about that.
I've been sitting on this one for like a month. Emilia Perez has been a week, so it's a little.
I will be a good ally and give you the platform to tell your story. Speak your truth.
I mean, it's just. I have nothing more to say. It's just. Oscars are
yeah.
a joke.
Oscars are a joke.
The biggest movie of the year isn't even relevant.
Mhm.
I think it has like 6 awards it's nominated for.
When the
not
Oscars-
including Best Director,
when
which
the
is a joke because like I don't know. I think Denis Villeneuve needs to make a movie about like goddamn Winston Churchill or something at this point. Like something has to happen for him to get a nomination. Sorry.
The Oscars are becoming a parody of the parody that they already were.
yeah.
I mean, I've always made this argument that they are looked at as the bastion of, or not the bastion, but the champion of film, right, for that year.
Mhm.
Like, how many people do you know casually? I say casual movie watchers, who are like, "Oh, it's an Oscar-nominated movie. It must
Yeah.
be pretty good, right?"
Yeah.
And it's like, if we're gonna have it that way, at least nominate movies that are
Worth a damn.
relevant.
Yeah.
I hope Honora wins.
Like Brutalist, I think like 6 people have seen that movie, and apparently it has 10 nominations, and it's the favorite to win Best Picture. And I'm like, what? Adrian Brody hasn't been relevant since like 2006.
He made that movie with Roman Polanski.
Yeah, that was the last movie he made, and it's like, I mean, that's a good movie, but still, it's like, I don't know. What are we doing here, guys? What are we doing?
A podcast.
It has 5 Oscar nominations. Dune 2. Best Sound, Achievement in Visual Effects, Motion Picture of the Year, Cinematography, Production Design. No soundtrack, which it was already disqualified for because it borrowed from the first one, which is a stupid rule, but whatever.
It's a sequel. Should be able to borrow, but go on. No.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. It's dumb.
No Best Director. No editing. I think that's the one thing people look at the Dune movies and are like, that.
So what would you rate Emilia Perez at?
The Oscars, I hate you.
Emilia Perez, we hate you.
I gave it a 13 out of 13.
Do you think the tweets from the main actress are gonna
No.
cause this movie to not be?
No.
No. They've
Winning-
already settled on who's winning. The nominations go out, they already know who's going to win. That's already happened. They're not going to change anything.
Do you think it's gonna win?
Remember that
lot
time
of
Chadwick Boseman died and they nominated Black Panther and then they didn't give it to him?
I think you're I think Chadwick died before
Yeah.
or after Black Panther was nominated.
No, because
He
They-
made he was in 3 movies with Black Panther before he died.
but it was 2020, I think. Because I remember they did like a special.
They did the NFT.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
But I think
God,
that was just a
NFTs.
remembrance thing.
It was. I
Because he
could've
died right
sworn
after.
it was nominated that year.
I mean, he had to have died after Infinity War
Yeah.
or Endgame, because he's in Endgame. Maybe that's what it was. It was like, yeah, it was right after. It was the year after, because it was the first Oscars during the
COVID.
pandemic.
Yeah.
So what is that? 21?
I could have sworn that he was nominated for it though, for something.
Maybe for
But-
something else.
Maybe for something else. That's true.
I don't know. I don't watch the Oscars anymore.
I think that year was the last year that I took him seriously because they did the NFT, and I was like,
You were like the Samsung ad with the Ellen DeGeneres in. The stupid like Amy Schumer bits,
Spider-Man? Yeah.
Spider-Man thing in. NFT, get the shit out of my face.
sometimes you just don't know any better.
Yeah, you know.
What are we doing next week?
What are we doing next week?
What are we doing next week?
Honora?
Honora would be good. It won. It
Like,
won the
watch
Palme
something
d'Or.
Good.
It won the Palme d'Or this year. It's Sean
Apparently,
Baker.
It's pretty good. From what
I'm
I've
down.
heard.
Sure.
The guy who made the Florida Project.
He also did Tangerine, which is
Tangerine.
another good movie about a trans character as well.
Oh.
Shot on an iPhone, interestingly enough.
Sean Baker.
Good director.
Well, look forward to talking
Branch
praise
out our-
about a movie.
Branch
Version.
Yeah.
branch our horizons out a little
And then
bit.
we can do all 4 hours of The Brutalist afterwards.
Nope.
I'm gonna veto that one.
Thanks for coming, guys.
See you guys next week.
Yeah. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.
Sorry that
Yada,
this
yada,
was a
call to
little,
action.
soap opera, or not soap opera. Yeah, I guess soap opera.
Televanilla-esque.
Yeah, televanilla.
We're out of here. Bye.